Good evening, Dougie. How are you today?
I'm fine, Martin. Just
Thank, thank you for
keep
joining
myself
me
in.
again. Thank you for
That's
joining me again. It's really
yeah.
appreciated. Yeah, it feels like the world's changed since we met the last time. It's only been about a week, I think.
Well, no, it's good to have a second shot because the last one just was a wee bit difficult. I would just say.
Were you nervous? Did you think? Would you?
I
You
wasn't.
missed?
I found I was the words were being blanked out. Quite
I
a lot.
know the
We were
audio.
talking.
It's
Yeah,
definitely a lot better now for sure.
I think
So
yes, we're getting used to it.
yeah, so I've
Okay,
got
so
some. So I've done quite a few interviews since we spoke the last
yeah,
time.
I've seen
Um,
most. Yeah,
You've seen one or two, yeah, for sure. I think I've now done 15. I think actually, it's quite a lot.
quite a lot. Yeah.
It's interesting. I've signed up Andy Cook. I don't know if you know Andy Cook, do you?
Oh,
From
no, Andy
Bridgeport.
Cook very well. Yes, yes, yes.
See, good. So I'm interviewing him on Saturday afternoon.
I thought you might
Um,
get to speak to him. Yeah.
yeah, so I think he's a friend of Kevin Stango, who I
Ah,
interviewed through the weekend. Do you know Kevin as well and
oh,
Gary?
of course, yes. You know that.
Oh yeah. No, that's no,
I'll tell
that's
you more
good.
about that later.
Oh really?
But he was
Did he
he was
coach
one of
them?
the first successes.
Was he?
If I could give myself some credit for him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's done very well, didn't he? And
Did
Gary
well.
as well. I think I had a
Gary
Gary,
also did. And the
did
funny
he
thing is, both of them actually suffered from glandular fever
really?
just in the late teens, early 20s. And both of them actually kind of dropped out for quite a long time from competition. And really, that stopped their careers
Really?
from developing. I,
Oh,
didn't, I, haven't, I remember Gary getting it. I remember Kevin actually seemed to get it at a slightly older age, but
did you say the,
you can
did
be
you say did you say they both had it? Wow,
both had it different times. I think. Yeah, listening to. Yeah.
that's incredible. Okay, I've got some questions for you today,
Go
Dougie, if
ahead.
you don't mind.
By the way,
Mostly I'd like to focus on coaching, if that's okay.
yeah, I've got that. That's fine.
Um,
Yeah.
so first of all, my first question was when did you might have covered a few of these things in our last interview last week. When did you first coach? Dougie?
Right. I started coaching in a sense in a small way at my church club, 1968 or so, uh, and I was coaching in the school, Tynecastle School, 1966. Actually, I started the school club,
Right.
and I got my first coaching qualification in 1970. In fact, the first badge, and I moved to Firhill where they were building a new games hall, and I kind of thought this is an opportunity. So
Yeah.
I
And
and I
did you have very
took
many?
off from there. Yeah.
Where did you go for the coaching
How do
to
you mean?
learn? Where did you
Oh,
go to get a badge?
yeah, well, they came to Edinburgh with did a they did a thing. You apply, and the examiners came along, and it was all kind of a kind of roadshow.
And there's certain things that you had to do, I guess, that kind of say, okay, I want you to teach this, or I want you with
Yeah,
the big, also with the beginners, with the people that you'd had before. What?
uh, they would not be beginners at that stage, but they were not top players. You were just supposed to be able to show them a stroke, and to show them positions and help them watch a game, help with tactics. That was the kind of thing that they were
Was
looking
it
for.
back in that time? Obviously, it's a long time ago. Was it very structured? Did they have forms and documents
It
and
did have, yeah,
manuals
it did have.
and
It was run by a guy called Colin Atkinson, who was quite a civil servant. He kept it. And of course, there were other coaches who came along. I mean, Billy Gillen's dad came along, and he was one of the ones. And Mac Henderson would go and do them as well.
really?
Yeah,
Was it just him himself that came, and was it all
did a couple
planned?
of them.
And how did it? When you first had it in the first, how long had you been coaching for when that happened?
Well, I mean, about 5 years or so, but
Really?
not formal coaching. I mean, it's a different thing coaching kids you don't know and coaching in a set situation. Club coaching players that you know well, it's just a natural sort of thing to do. But
Yes.
always there's a wee bit more when you have to jump through certain hoops and do the right things.
And how did you get into it? What made you say, I want to be a coach? Well, why did you, is it you thought,
I'll tell you,
what age were you as well when that happened, when you started coaching, first of all?
but 21 if you count when I started teaching as being when I
Hmm.
started coaching. But it was just, I suppose it came from just my involvement in my love of the game, and I've always felt that the most important thing is actually to transmit that love of the game. The kids have got to enjoy the sessions. they've got to enjoy playing, got to enjoy learning. And I've never been. You talk about not enjoying routines, and I think they have their place, but at a certain stage, and they do also, as you suggested as well, tend to sometimes to stifle individuality. So I've always sort of tried to maintain a kind of a relaxed situation, perhaps, where their kids can experiment for themselves and also learn the right way to do it, which they then, it's up to them.
And you've obviously been very successful, and I think that there's probably a lot of emphasis on of the enjoyment, especially when beginners, right? It's
yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Oh, there should be an enjoyment in the game. I didn't believe in starting too formally. Sometimes the actual way they wanted you to do it was, I remember they used to say backhand. No, it wasn't backhand. It was low serve. Under 12s, low serve, doubles. High serve is obviously the one that it's just making things difficult. So right. I would not want it, and I found, I tried to keep things simple, even take the net out of the game, faster shuttle, pat it backwards and forwards, side to side kind of thing, and then over the net, and just keeping a rally going. And sometimes, obviously, when they're very young beginners, you need an adult or a good player to do it. So you accept that you can't do it. You can't.
Did you have a lot? Did you have a lot?
Have to let them find their way.
Did you have a lot of assistance? Did you have to have assistance? Do you feel?
No. And most of my coaching I've done, and certainly in the early stages, I was done on a kind of one coach teacher kind of situation, and a lot of it was done by learning. Never spend too long on one thing, and let them get into something which involves some freedom and some competition, a little wee bit of competitive stuff, So you always have a certain point, a bit of warming up, running up sort of thing. I never thought of that an awful lot of flexibility. That was a waste for young kids. I thought a waste of time. So they do a bit of warm up, and then they'd start hitting shuttles, and then they'd start practicing a certain skill perhaps for the day, and then they would do that and build it into free play situations.
Oh, so that's my first question was, when did you start coaching? What age were you when you started? You said 21. Why did you start? Just you like the game and you want to, what's the word? I guess
I just wanted to. I was a bit of an ego trip, really. I enjoyed the fact that they enjoyed what I was doing, and I was
good, isn't it?
It was a good relationship. Particularly as a teacher, it gives you doing others. I was an English teacher, but you go into a badminton situation and it's a different situation. They're all there voluntarily and they're there for fun. So you get a different. They see a different side of me, and I get a different side of them.
Good, isn't it? And do you have a favorite age of a student? Is one of my questions.
Yeah, I think. Well, it's funnily enough. I mean, it is really secondary age, and I suppose it would just be that sort of 13, 14, 15 years old, and right up to 17, 18. I did. I was going to digress a bit into mentioning Kevin Stango, who came to me, as he said, from a primary school where he played for about a year, from my partner Elmer Christie, who ran that, and went with him. Now I took him right through, and I was playing with him in lunch hours and so on as well, and playing singles against him as he got better, and he got to win the national under-16 singles. As you probably let you know, and I was very pleased with that. Obviously,
you're proud, yeah.
I was on the coaching scheme. I'd been put on with Roger Mills, who was running it. So I was his personal coach, I think, at that point.
Wow.
And I decided I decided that I didn't want to go forward at that point. I couldn't go forward with Kevin and also stay and do what I was doing for the other kids. It was a case of what do I do? And I suggested really, or said myself, that I have to let him go on to the next level.
On to the next level. That was one of my questions. That comes later, but how do you know when you just is it because you're playing with him and he starts beating you?
No. I remember that he may not. You'll be listening to this now too. But just the day or so before the nationals, and I gave him a game of singles. I never told him this. I actually let him get close. I mean, I'm not saying There's a situation actually, and there's partly being the coach and so on, and there's always this kind of reverence sort of situation. No, reverence is not the right word, but there's a bit of a barrier in a way.
Yeah, of course.
Do they dare to beat you, kind of thing, I suppose.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I
And
remember
is there?
watching the famous runner Haile Gebrselassie. You know him, Haile Gebrselassie.
No, no.
Oh, well, he's a fantastic, a complete god in where it was Ethiopia or something. It was Ethiopia, and he was in this race, and a young player of his own country was going to beat him, and the guy came running up beside him, 10,000 meters, running up beside him, looked at him. Haile Gebrselassie dotted back, and the guy moved ahead. He was allowed to pass his god. You know, there's a certain amount in coaching, and at the same time, I would say don't play players in a way. Don't play them and lose.
Yes, I see what you
But
mean.
you have to lose, and they lose gracefully, and that's probably at that point that's past, that's over, you know. And I would say keep them wanting it as long as possible.
Yes, absolutely fantastic. When did you get? The next question was, when did you get your first qualification? That was 5 years after you started, right? Was that by 75 or something?
That was 1970 was the first qualification.
75. And did you, when you were coaching, have you always continued to play, or did you
Yeah.
start coaching because you'd stopped playing? No.
Oh, no. Playing and coaching were just two sides of the same coin.
To me, coaching is an amazing thing because it's so selfless, I think. And I know you say that you get enthusiasm from it and things like that, but from a student's point of view, it's just selfless. Like sometimes I've thought about giving coaching, and I've done some children's coaching, and I've done it over my life, but to continue to do it, I think is very, very hard. Like to do it for like the time that you've done it for, year on year, month on month, week on week, is I suppose is the summertime, the holidays, is that out of season? I guess it stops and that's your break, right?
Yeah, eventually we did summer. I did the summer courses at Inverclyde for the schools.
Did you?
Yeah, that was a week. That was an
Yeah.
intensive week. But yes, I had a break. I had a break at that time.
And you're a teacher as well, so when the school was off, you were off for weeks, right?
Yeah, but I then sometimes did. For a time, I was doing 5 days in the holiday week for the October for the council. You know, they would get me to come in and do a coaching course there. So it wasn't a whole day. But I used to go at the end of a day, 3:45, whatever it was, right down to badminton, and I felt completely renewed by that. It was something totally different. You switched into a different gear. It was the adrenaline started flowing and so on. So it was actually not. It was something that became almost a drug, I suppose.
I think it's part of probably not just coaching. I think for me that's part of. I've got quite a stressful job, and a job which I guess it's some people do a job that suits their nature. I do a job which you've got to be quite gregarious all the time, and you've got to be outgoing, and you can't be pessimistic or negative or down. You've got to be quite upbeat, and sometimes you do feel right. You do feel, oh God, I feel a bit, I don't feel great, or so it is a little bit of drama, a little bit of acting when it goes into what I do, because in sales you can't phone somebody up and frankly be depressed, right? Even though you feel depressed, so you learn to shade it. When actually going on a battle court, to me, it's I can really be myself, and it's a real distraction, I think, from day to day life, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, there's the old business of the wind beneath your wings kind of thing in the song. It's actually the kids lift you, the audience, if you like.
That's amazing.
The deal.
How many people did you when you first started coaching?
And the great thing is also.
How many people was it, Dougie? How many people did you coach when you first started? How many were coming to you?
It'd be 12. Well, you coaching school club. A school club, first of all, at Tynecastle School. It was one court and about 12 to 16 kids, perhaps. You have to just sort of try and keep them doing things. It could have up to, in a larger hall, I could have 32.
Really?
More than 32. Well, multi-court.
And you're still on your own?
I could be. Oftentimes in the early days we were. It became more the thing to do teams and have assistant coaches later on. But if you're ever doing it, as I had to do sometimes, doing it, getting in a paid situation for the council, They only want to pay one person.
Yeah.
So
And how do you? Can I ask how
that's
do
the
you?
truth of the situation.
What would your advice be on keeping it? You know, I think when you've got a group of that size, what's your advice on kind of giving responsibility to the older students, the older kids you're coaching, onto the younger kids that they're coaching? And what's your thoughts on that? Do you find they embrace it, or does it not work? That
It can do if they're the right kind of kids in the right situation. But I'll tell you this, I think once you get a club situation, a group situation going, it's a natural dynamic. The younger players imitate the older players. The older players actually quite like, and as long as it's not too big a gap, they like helping the younger ones, and it makes them feel good too. And the younger ones love to play against older players, you know. So you can use them in that sort of situation without it being a formal thing.
That's it's interesting.
They keep it, I think, informal as far as possible.
Yeah. When you so when you okay, my next question was when you get an absolute beginner, somebody that's never ever played before in their life, come to like I suppose I don't know. Do you get that at that age? You don't. Is that not your thing, Diggy?
You can get that. And if you're taking a group of beginners
Yes.
and you're on your own and there's
Yes.
one person who can't hit the shuttle,
Yes.
you have a problem. You cannot actually neglect everyone else. You don't want to neglect them either. It's great if you have some older kid or some older one in the group who can help that person. Because the first thing is actually making contact with the shuttle. Once they can make contact with the moving shuttle, and some people I know couldn't even serve.
Yes, of course.
When it was the old-fashioned forehand serve, there are some people who just couldn't drop it and hit it.
I still can't do that.
The backhand serve became much easier for beginners.
Did you ever have that thing that some people do? There was somebody talking about the fishing rod with the string hanging off it in the shuttle. Did you do that?
Kind of thing. There was a thing called the Shuttle Master, which they charged 150 quid for, and it was basically a gibbet with a string hanging down. You could adjust it to the height. That was quite good for getting people to stretch their arms to reach
high
out.
as they can. Hit it high.
I didn't take to that too much. And I'll tell you another thing. I never took too greatly to hand feeding, as they say, throwing shuttles to people and kids doing it and so on. I thought it's far better if they can actually, if you, for all that there'll be some failures, but hand feeding is a bit, it's very limited, I think, what you can do.
Yeah, I think so. It depends what it is. I suppose a drop maybe you'd get away with, I suppose. So my question was the question actually was, when you get an absolute beginner, what's the first thing you would teach somebody?
I would teach them patting the shuttle. Actually, first of all, with Javel, I teach them putting the shuttle on the racket. I call it egg and spoon. And they're running across the court with it. And
really?
Just keep it on the racket. And then I get them to bounce it up and down on the racket. And then I'll get them to bounce it and turn the racket over. Bounce, turn over. That's more advanced, obviously. And to tell you this, you can spot the ones who are going to be good.
Really?
Because they're the ones who are good at that.
Really? They can turn it over and hit it forehand and backhand.
There are some kids who just don't miss it in that situation. Others, they're chasing it around the hall. So it's just, but it's a good thing. And it's very limited, but it's a contact. And then I would get them to, with the backhand serve, I would get them to stand around a circle and put a wee target in the middle, a Carlton head cover or something, just getting the backhand serve and it all together. Oh, great, you've hit it. That's fantastic. And little things like that. For the beginners, it's that kind of thing. And I would devise games. I was doing primary school kids. I devised games like piggy in the middle kind of thing, where you're hitting across the court and someone in the middle is trying to intercept the shuttle. And if they get it, they become the side player. And another great thing was actually, particularly in a one-court hall, is to play any kind of play, a kind of round-robin game where you play in turn. Some people called it King of the Castle or something like that. It's professional, different names like that. But you could have any number of kids at the side, and when one went off, the other one came on, and they each scored a point, and getting them going around the hall that way. So it kept people involved in playing. That's it. But that wasn't so much coaching. That was just to give them the playing situation when there's a large number there.
Well, interestingly, I did the introduction to badminton course a few years ago, and nearly everything you've just described is actually in a little A5 booklet that they make.
Well, I used to take these courses.
Did you?
Yeah, and that and the next level up.
And it's all just about the fun, as you say. It's all just about the fun of learning the game, and it's all about the enjoyment of. But what I remember is you talking about, it was a hula hoop in the middle of the court and serving into the hula hoop.
Yeah, and all sorts of things that are basically badminton. I think as Roger Mills said this, make your practice as game-like as possible, he said. Because you are teaching them how to play a game. So I wouldn't get them to do, there's some very funny things, I wouldn't say what they were, but there were some things that just weren't going to help with badminton. I always wanted to do something that was actually taking them forward in the badminton sense and the building towards the game itself.
When you had a child, do you remember anybody, who do you remember coaching for the longest number of years, I suppose, is my interesting thing. Who came to you? Who do you remember having for years? Do you know anyone like that?
Lisa Campbell.
Really?
About the age of, because I coached her father after. He was one of my first kids at Firhill. And she came along to my Wester Hales class. And just to put you in picture, I ran the Firhill, a big club that you heard about, to Friday nights. It went up to 1990s. But by that time, 1985 or so, I'd started doing Wester Hales on a Tuesday night. And that gradually took over, in a sense, that situation, because I left Firhill. So she came along. She wasn't at Firhill. She came along, I think, by the age of 7. She'll tell me if I'm wrong. But obviously she was a talented kid, very, very, very intelligent, good at picking things up and so on, good at technique. Yeah. But I took her all the way up, let's say about 16 or even beyond.
Really, from 7?
I remember latterly I used to go on and play them in the situations and play them round. And I did remember coming back after a Christmas break and thinking, I'm finding it difficult to beat you here, Lisa.
Yeah, she's a great
basically, I thought I was just saying that it was a bit of practice, but B, perhaps it was writing on the wall kind of thing,
And anybody else?
Well, I mean, that she I took through for, I suppose that's about 10 years. 10 years, and she was in Nomads by that time, of course, with her dad. And my own kids, of course. I started them pretty young in the back garden, Emma and Eric. And
do you think that was a big? Do you think that was a big motivator to get into coaching your own kids?
No, because I did it before I had kids. It was actually, I was very pleased. I have to say, I was very lucky that they both took the badminton.
Definitely.
And they didn't put them off. But I made a point of structuring it so actually I had sessions and I could get them into the sessions I was taking.
I see.
So I wasn't coaching them one-to-one too much, because that can put pressure on. And I've always found one-to-one coaching is a pressure thing, particularly if parents, as they are sometimes, paying you money and they want results. And the kids know that. It's a pressure on the kid. It's not, to my mind, it's not a great situation. So I've always wanted to, I know myself that I made my own decision to play badminton. And my parents had played it, but they didn't play it at that time. My brother was playing it, but I made my own decision, and I've never felt pressure to play badminton. Sometimes pressure not to play so much. but it was always what I wanted to do, and I wanted any kids that I was involved, I wanted them to be the thing that they wanted to do, and I was helping them.
When when you played, so how many nights a week did you coach?
Oh dear me! Well, it all depends. When I gave up teaching, I was coaching just about 5-6 days a week.
Really?
Not whole days, of course. It would be sessions, a couple of hours, 3 hours. Yeah. There was a time after that when I did actually, I had some pretty full days and weeks. I did Lothian squad coaching on the Sundays as well. So a lot of after school clubs and so on.
What did your wife think about badminton? Did she hate it because you're away?
Did it? She played it, of course, and she played it quite. She came back and played it after she had the kids. Played a lot. She played it she played competitively, but she didn't come to Nomads. She didn't feel that she wanted to be that competitive.
With friends or whatever.
So she played elsewhere, and but she loved the kids. That's the thing. She really wanted. So if I took the kids, she missed them. She was happy. She was happy to be at home with the kids. I'm going to put it that way. But
I see. And my next question was, do you remember learning anything from other coaches?
Oh yeah.
Did you go and see the other coaches? What?
I'll tell you particularly. I mean, I learned a lot from Roger Mills when I was working with him. He was the national coach for Scotland. I was helping him, and I was with him with teams and so on. I learned a lot of things from him. That's it. One of the little things like he called it. It had funny names for them, but he got the loopy shot. There's some people playing at the net, and some people are tight on the net, and some people are a wee bit back off the net. And if you know they're coming on the net, just push it past them. You don't have to. You don't. If they're coming in on the net, just hold and then push it fast. Little shot like that. I mean, that was a real competitor's thing. But I picked up a lot from him, and I picked up other. Well, I don't. Robert McCoy was a very famous player, but in the past, and I hardly saw him play. But his at the net, he would come up and he'd brush across the shuttle as he came up there like that. And that's the thing I learned to do. And you'd always turn the shuttle back across the player into the body or across their body. And that's and it had a little touch of uncertainty, and the shuttle would fly up. So you learn by watching players, but also sometimes I went to Inverclyde. They had coaches conferences every week, every summer, and I never missed one for many years. And I always thought, like, I'm learning. I know maybe at that time I was thinking, I know most of the stuff they're saying, but there's always 5% or 10% where I get something. And there were Chinese coaches, there were Danish coaches, Dutch coaches, German coaches, but the Danish ones were the ones that I really admired the things that they did.
Yeah, I'm trying to get. In fact, I've got Jim Loganson coming on. It'd be interesting to talk to him about.
I know Jim Loganson too. I saw him as a junior.
Did you?
Very competitive, even against his own players.
Yeah. I think that's Danish thing.
He was faulted at match point in the Scottish event for not returning the shuttle. You put it there. Someone served. He said, "Not ready." And umpire said, "You were ready." Game, set, match.
No way.
It happened. It happened to him. I think it might be Dunfermline or something like that. I don't know. But don't ask him about that one. But
I know. I definitely will. With any joy, you'll watch it. That'd be great. I was going to ask you something else. So here's a one for you. Here's one for you. So receiving serve. Tell me what you think of this. Receiving serve, right?
Yeah.
And a right-handed player, right, with their right foot forward.
Flick deep to the forehand.
No, just a forehand. So you're receiving serve.
I know.
And it seems to be the more common thing now, where people are standing with their right foot forward and just leaving their left foot grounded, and then just stepping forward on the shuttle. Whenever you watch them on the TV, this is what they're doing now, isn't it? I was always taught to have the left foot forward, but it seems to be the opposite. Is that right?
Well, I'll tell you, it's easier when you're forward retrieving service. You're looking to come forward, and you're vulnerable to the flick.
Yes.
Now, most people will, if you're good enough, you get it. But if your right foot's forward, I think you're slower getting back. That first step, is a big step. But
if you watch the left foot is actually quite a long way back, and the right foot is quite a wide stretch. Yes.
First step has to be a big right foot body turn.
Yes.
And that I think makes them a fraction later. So if you serve wide to their forehand corner.
Right, here's another one. Lauren Smith.
Then you knock them off. Then you knock them off being so close to the net.
Here's another one for you. Lauren Smith and Marcus Ellis. Lauren Smith stands as the lady at the front stands on the right-hand side.
You know this. This is a thing that I did. I've only seen it in the last 5 or 6 years. The lady with the backhand service now. The lady stands in front of the receiver.
Yeah.
That side or that side. It's that. What you are is they're serving to that side, and the lady is actually saying, "I'm covering." You always want to cover the straight shot first, so they're not having to move. They're there, and the receiver has to put the shuttle wide to get it past them or some way. So they're there, spiders in their web, saying, "I'm here covering this," and it is important that straight reply is what they're covering.
I've got one more anomaly I want to put to you, right? So you're standing serving. Headphones gone off. So you're standing serving on the even side.
Yeah.
Right, in the tee.
Sorry, I lost your voice there.
All right, if you got me. So you're standing serving, playing mixed. The lady's in front of you at the tee on the left-hand side, just on the left-hand side, and you're serving on the even side. So can you serve the shuttle behind the back of the lady to the far right-hand side of the opposite court? Are you with me?
Yeah, I do. You don't have to.
Can you serve behind her back? Can the shuttle go? Can the shuttle go behind her back?
If you're far enough forward, depending if you're close up to the serve and your lady's still in front of you, you might find that you got the angle there. If you want to do that, that to my mind, that's always been a kind of a variation serve.
Yeah.
Because if they suss it, they push it straight down your backhand.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You
But
know,
what the clever thing about doing it is it always catches people out. But I think it may be illegal. I think the ruling is that your opponent has got to be able to see the
yes,
rackets. So if
yeah,
you imagine the shuttle, it's going behind the back of your lady. So it's actually going to the way to. So she's in front of you, right? And you're actually serving behind her back. So there is a second when the shuttle disappears out of view of your opponent because it's actually behind your partner. If you stand, if you need a picture, maybe I'll put an image of it online, and you'll
actually,
see
no,
what I'm talking about.
it's actually you have to be able to see the action, not just the shuttle. You have to be able
Is
to see
it?
the action. So like that bit for your arm almost. And there's a guy, and you've heard of John Britton, have you?
Yeah, yeah, I think I have it.
He did this in the Nationals. He served behind his back, the shuttle there, right behind the back. To my mind, it's a complete winner. But to my mind, the umpire could have said, "Now it's not the fault necessarily. The
Yeah,
opponent can say, I'm sorry, I wasn't ready because I didn't see your whole action."
yeah.
And then
I
you
don't
need
think you've got it, so I'm going to post an image of it because I think it'll explain it better. If you're standing back, you can actually you need to see it. So do an image of it. Okay, next question. Do you still learn from other coaches? Do you remember? What did it say? Hold on a second. When do you know? That's what I was going to ask you. When do you know when somebody has talent and when do you know that you've done enough as much as you can do as a coach, and where do you send them? How do you say, I've taught you everything I can teach you. You really need to go to X, and is there multiple people that you can send people to? Is there just a
there
next
are
level?
people there are people who actually like to take individuals at the next level. Now
Right.
I'll tell you Kevin Stango again. Kevin, I got to the point actually it was just before, it was about 15 or so, and I said to Roger Mills, who was the head of the at that time, I said, "Look, I have to find there's nothing more I can teach Kevin. He's got all the strokes. What should I do?" He said, "More repetitions. Just
Really?
more repetitions, more pressure. So there's a
Really?
different level. You know,
Yeah.
you've the techniques are there, and there are fine tunings to be done certainly, but basically you're onto a different level where it's all about small increments and probably a number of repetitions and more pressure
So you never really got the fear, and you thought, no, I can't do it. You just thought, okay, you took that and you said, okay, I'll do what you say. I'll just keep on pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and naturally he'll go to tournaments on weekends and whatever else he's going to do, and yeah,
Uh-huh. I don't think I've not had that feeling, except that I would say when I'm aware of it, it's
yeah,
the kids normally will move on anyway.
yeah, great.
I mean,
Um,
there are always some. I mean, there are people in Lothian, for example, who love taking players on into that. So David Cunningham out at Dalkeith and John Williamson, who you've probably heard of course.
yes,
John Williamson.
I've asked him for an interview. Yeah,
He carry on afterwards, for example, after my time with him, and there are other really good kids around Edinburgh. So they like to go further, and they went further in that sense. But I stuck with the schools and the schools' international teams, and I just loved working with that age.
did you
Uh,
go and watch tournaments? When they competed, like when Kevin competed, did you go and did you feel invested to when he went to tournaments and then you'd go and watch or what? How did you feel
what
about
you watch, but you're a bit like a parent, not quite. You can always disown someone if he's not your own.
that?
But no, but no, you do feel that you just want them, and it's a danger if you're involved in other ways in the sport. When you get too much involved in a player that you believe in them and that you want them to do well, and sometimes it becomes pretty obvious to others that you're biased in that sense.
Yeah,
A tricky one.
it's got to be impartial. Okay,
You
that's
can't
good.
be.
Time is almost up. 34 minutes. Just one last question. Do you still love coaching, and what is it about coaching that you love?
I I don't love coaching so much, and it's a selfish thing, but I'm not able to do the things physically
Right.
as well as I could. And so if I try to go on and do them, it doesn't look so good. There's no point in doing it. So I've always liked to be a to go on and play and show, and
Yeah.
it's more difficult. But I still enjoy coaching. I would do it nowadays in a more teacher-like way, but I'd take a
Sure.
group and give them, give them a demonstration and set up a practice, and then go around. Hopefully, some other people helping them to do it. It's a little more structured, perhaps, but it's just the way you have to. But honestly, my coaching career is nearing its end. There are other things in life I may get around to.
Absolutely. Golf, maybe golf.
No, not golf. I try golf. My son would never allow that. He's a good golfer. So and he's teaching his kids to play golf too, as well as badminton. So no, I know the trouble. I know how poor I am at golf.
I'm the same. Good.
Yeah.
Douglas, Dougie Walker, thank you again. That's been awesome tonight. And I'm sure it's a massive inspiration to a lot of coaches out there. So again,
of course.
we will hopefully we've covered more of what you want to talk about today. So we can get
have you got a couple of minutes yet?
Yes, of course.
I want to talk about Danish badminton.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay, that'll be cool.
Many times, and just very quickly, I've been involved in the clubs that you've went to Aalborg many times. Oh, look what I'm wearing here.
All right, really well.
Right, and the clubs there are fantastic. 6 courts in line, and there's about every 3 or 4 or 5 miles around the towns there are these clubs, and the clubs they're given the right to use these. Unlike British, the clubs actually organise themselves. And there might be multi-sport clubs, but the badminton organise themselves. They have a club room, and they get there might be a school during the day, for example. Then the kids come in after pick up some old shuttles. The next stage up, young coaches come in and help them, and gradually through the night they have the top players, then they have the old boys, as they call them, old boys of both genders, right up to the 60s, 70s, and they've got leagues all over the place, and it's just so much. It's such a good environment to enjoy the game. It's just the social side we'll talk about, the support and so on. And in these clubs, the parents don't take the kids to the tournaments. They're going to a tournament in Copenhagen. They get a bus, and the coaches take them. And they sleep overnight in the halls on mattresses, and they come back again. And so it's a totally different situation. And I could never get that to work in Britain.
Yeah, and I think that what interests me is that it hasn't diminished in Denmark. That's what gets me. In Britain, everybody talks about. I've talked to everybody, and everybody said, "Oh, you don't get those numbers now." In Denmark, it still continues. They haven't lost it. It still continues.
You'd be surprised if we go there and say Denmark's top sport in badminton. No, football. And then handball. Badminton's third, apparently.
Is it? I think it's.
But mind you,
astonishes me.
Good.
Thank you very much, Douglas. We're going to run out of.
Different world. Yeah.
It's a different world. Samuel Laysan had some interesting chat. Did you watch Samuel talking about Malaysia?
I did. Yeah. And that again is a different. That's not Denmark. That's not the way they do it in Denmark. There's personal things. No, yeah. It's just. Much more, it's more amateur in a funny sort of way.
We will come back and talk again about Danish badminton. Another day we're going to talk about, maybe I'll get Jim, when Jim Loganson comes on, maybe I'll get you in as well. How's that?
Don't get me in it, but you can ask him. You might watch this. You heard of the case. A Scottish tournament.
I'll never forget that.
You were faulted for not receiving the service.
He is going to be tagged in this message because he will watch it. Thank you very much, Dougie. Cheers. Have a good night. Thank you. Thanks again.